The numbers dropped down to 17 a day from 20. So there is a benefit there, but we got more people and more beds.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so next we're going to move on to presentations. U.S. Veterans Wreaths Across America. Commissioner Boyce.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce Don Bemis. I've met him at the Vietnam Veterans Local 757 a couple of times. He's on a wonderful project. You may recall, I think back in March, I offered a display on Arlington Cemetery. And to see, I didn't know that locally you've been putting in this kind of effort, and really appreciate your goal and your goals, your objective here on this incredible project. It is growing, and we're just glad to have you here. So you're welcome to take the microphone if you like. Love your hat.
Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen, I want to appreciate and thank Commissioner Boyce for inviting me. My name is Don Bemis. I'm a Navy Vietnam veteran.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, and justice for all. Okay, and I'm special. I'm important. Okay, what did we learn yesterday? What would you do if you see a gun? Show it. Stop. You're not going to give up this today, aren't you? Just stand up and do it. How do we do when we cross the street? Which way do we look? Left over your shoulder. Very, very good. Okay, everybody have a seat.
Alyssa, can you go next? All right, I bet you'll do a great job. And if you guys aren't sure what to say, Mr. Dan here will help you. A bear trying to get in your house, whatever you want. It's another emergency. My goodness. 911, what's your emergency? There's a fire at your neighbor's house. Okay, tell me.
Ronald Lightning bugs me was. I have to catch the one that talks.
Cauliflower.
Nobody's gonna believe this.
So kid, what's your name?
Arnold.
Arnold. My. I have a brother named Arnold.
Sure you do.
First things they get. It's free. The whole program is free. Our sponsors, we put buildings of what they have for our street, our city. This is our second class for Safety City of 2007. We have 19 graduates. We're short one right now. Hopefully they'll show up before we're over. I want you to know the staff thanks you for your trust in letting us have your children for this past week. We hope we made some new friends with the kids. They worked hard. Listen to them. If they say we can't cross the street until we look 3 ways, listen to them. They're smart. They know what they're doing. Mrs. Wood's going to call their names up to get the diploma. And then they're going to get some goodies from us. And they get to shake hands with McGraw.
Zachary. Congratulations.
Rough picture, though. Salem's got the same type of program. They charge $50 a head when the kids come through. But because of our sponsors, it's free to these kids. We are finished now. If you want to, you can have your children have their pictures taken with McGruff, or if you want to, you can take the card in front of the poster. Let the picture taken. We thank you for coming, and we appreciate having your children. Thank you. Goodbye.
We're very proud of our program.
Hey, we got to applaud there, though.
This is the helmet they get. It's the best one we could find at the price. Here's their diploma. And you've seen the graduation, the gown, cap and gown. One shirt fits all, what size. Sometimes they're the knees, sometimes they're their ankles. Our sponsors, if they want to, they get a poster. The staff picks a kid, 4 kids at random, to be our poster child each year. Our list of sponsors here average anywhere from 35 to 40 a year, although we've had as many as 6 or 7 people have been with us since the beginning. We appreciate that. Like it says in there, it's anywhere from $55 to $60 per child to put through. We've had some families that had 3 and 4 kids come through, a couple with 5, and believe it or not, one family had 6 children come through. It just speaks to the program, how good it is. And like I say, we're looking forward to this year again. It'll be our 23rd year. We can handle up to 30 kids at a time because of the 15 cars. Half the kids are in the street, half your kids are in the classroom. Then we have a break in between to get a snack. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you offer your classes at all schools here in Curry County or just Brookings?
Just Brookings. I have had other communities come and ask me how they get it started when they find out the cost and the effort and the time and the dedication. Although 3 years ago, I don't know if any of you people know Marie Coleman, works for the electric company. She got a hold of me and they wanted to start a program up in Port Orford. And it was a one-day program on a Saturday. First year we was up there, we helped them with our equipment and brought it up there. Last year they did it on their own using our equipment. This year I'm sure they're planning again. They are now finally got to be a 501c3 as we are, or they can get donations given to them. So they, in time, they'll be able to do the same thing we're doing without any cost. Yes, ma'am.
One last question. How many volunteers do you have in your organization that help out?
Anywhere from 15 to 18.
Okay.
And believe it or not, we had 7 children last year who are past graduates.
Good. All right.
The kids listen to them more than they do to us. Because it's their age group. And it's just, in fact, we had 2 that graduated last year and are now in college. They were so good at doing this, I let them run the outside. So we're happy with the program. All the volunteers, like I tell them, once I get my claws in you, you're mine. And they keep coming back and back and back. And anything else I can answer? Yes, sir.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Is there something specific you think we could do in the county? I mean, I talked to you a couple times, and your heart is to move north, and I just wonder if there's a way we can help you a little bit with the traction on that, and if you have some thoughts.
Just keep advertising, and anyone wants to start it, we'll help them. But again, like I said, it's the dedication and the time involved. I'm already started for this year by going out, figuring out when the weeks are going to be, how much more I have to purchase to give it to the children. Because each year we got to pay for the helmets, we got to pay for the shirts and caps, the snacks. Sometimes that is given to us by either Fred Meyer's or Grocery Outlet, and which helps us. And it's just getting the people together and having their kids come.
If I may, I want to give another shout out for an additional organization that you're involved in with Retired Badges.
Right.
And that's a great group of people.
Oh.
It's amazing the number of retired, we're recruiting past law enforcement officers to come to our county.
At one time, we had 70 between Curry and Coos County and Del Norte.
Did you meet in Brookings? Oh,
Right.
I'd forgot. Yes, you include Del Norte County.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great organization, and you get together and you talk about
Just
your
general
community.
knowledge of what we've
Yes.
done, what we did at our department, what's happening, and what you're getting from this retirement, what you're getting from that retirement, and just compare the stuff. And you get together and just have a good time.
And you talk about law enforcement issues, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, that's...
Called Retired Badges.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your
Third
time on
Wednesday
that,
of
too.
every month.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate, thank you, Mr. Boyce, for having me here. I appreciate it very much and your attention here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, next we're going to go on to 5C, Draft Curry County Strategic Plan. Ms. Schmelzer and Moss Adams.
Yes, so this past summer, the board approved proceeding with our first ever countywide strategic plan, and we're coming to the final stages of that. This will be our final presentation and opportunity for input on the plan. So we do have the consultants from Moss Adams here today. We have Annie and Pauline.
He finally smiled.
And so they're going to run through the draft plan with us. Like I said, this is our last opportunity for comment on it. While they're getting the presentation ready, I just want to talk a little bit about the process. So we've met with the managers
You can have the
a couple times.
Thank you very much for
They've
having me.
surveyed all the employees. They had a pretty good return rate on that. They surveyed the public. They had over 100 responses from the public. We did hold an open house in Gold Beach. Didn't have very good attendance there. We had an open house basically yesterday in Brookings and one in Port Orford, and did not have good public response there either. But it could be because we had some really good online responses to the survey and input. So Colleen's just going to go through basically the highlights of that plan. And like I said, if we have no changes today, it'll be final. Whatever changes we have today will be added. It'll be finalized, and it'll be brought to the board for final adoption or for the adoption on February 19th.
Perfect. Could you also pull that other mic over? There you go.
Feel a little bit famous, two mics.
There you go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us back. I'm Colleen Rosillas. As a reminder, I'm a senior manager with Moss Adams, and I lead our local government strategic planning practice. We're really happy to be back in Curry County. Julie actually took us on a little bit of a hike yesterday, so we don't always get to have a little bit of a nature break, so I really appreciate that, and it really helps us to really connect more to Curry County, which is great for us. So I'm just going to walk you through a little bit about what we're going to do today. I'll give a little bit of a overview of the planning process as we're close to the end of the process, give you a bit of a refresher of what the strategic framework is. We're going to go through our draft mission, vision, and values statements. If you recall, the last time we were in front of you at a meeting, we went through those statements and took your input. And then we'll go over the strategic goals, which we have developed with the help of the community, with the three of you, and with the management team. I'll do an overview just of the plan components for just one area to show how the plan is organized. I know you all have had a chance to see the plan over the last week and review it, and then we'll talk about our next steps and get you to adopting your plan. So our plan process, so it's been about a 4-month process. If you recall, we were here in October. We interviewed each of you individually. We interviewed every member of the management team, other members of staff. We also interviewed members of the community. We attended a community meeting with Commissioner Pash, and we have spent quite a lot of time gathering information from the community through both direct conversations and surveys. We, through that work, helped to develop draft mission, vision, and values statements. And then between November and January, we worked on establishing goals for the county, determining what those priorities were based on conversations with the three of you again, as well as input from the public and management team. We came back and we had another work session with management to work on goals and then to really talk about what can we do to help achieve our goals, what's feasible, what's reasonable, what should the work of the county over the next 5 years really look like, and that's what you see in the plan document that's in front of you today. So we held our open houses yesterday, and then we're just pending board adoption of the plan. So what you see in front of you is really a final draft. There are a couple of places in the document where we'd like your input. Part of our discussion today should just be thinking about for you if there are any changes that you would like to see, if there are any additions you'd like to see to the plan. Within the context of the fact that if we are making any additions, then we probably want to think about some trade-offs because we only have, limited resources and limited staff time and a certain amount of time to achieve what we want to. And then lastly, there will be a letter at the front of the plan that we would like all three of you to sign. And so over the next week, we'll circulate a draft letter to the three of you to help you wordsmith that and finalize it and get it in that final document. Do you have any questions about the process?
No.
Okay. So, strategic framework. I think you might remember this very exciting pyramid. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about what the strategic plan is for and why we do this work. So we do this work in part to define who we are, to think about what the role of government in the county is, and really to think about, given our resources, given what the community needs and expects from us, what are we going to do over the next 5 years? And so within this document, you'll see kind of everything in the black text is defined in this document. So we've established a mission, we've established a vision, kind of long-term, where do we want to go? What are our values as an organization? We've established strategic goals and then those objectives that support them. And we've also in the plan included performance measures. So we would expect that the management of the county is going to come back to you on a regular basis and report on those performance measures so that we can talk about what progress are we making toward our goals. And a strategic plan is both a plan for how we are going to operate as a county, but it's also a public document. It's also committing to the public, this is what we're going to do. And then we want to be able to come back to the public and say, yes, we did what we said we would. Or if we aren't on track, why? Right? And so we want to use performance measures in this language to be able to provide that context to the public. It's a great opportunity to improve your transparency and accountability to the public, and it's pretty easy to do as well. We'll also be providing Julie and the management team with an annual work plan template so that we can help you get on the road to developing your first annual work plan. And we'd love to see departments tie their work to the strategic framework by developing implementation plans to show how they're supporting the strategic plan as well. One thing that the strategic plan is not that we come across quite frequently when we do this work in counties is that the county is made up of lots and lots of different governmental entities, and we're the county government. And it can kind of be hard for both the work that we do as well as from the perception of the public to distinguish between, okay, what is the county responsible for and what is it not responsible for? And so this is not a regional plan. This isn't a plan for the cities or the special districts. We're not telling them what to do. We are telling them that we want to be a regional leader and that we want to collaborate and we want to work together to solve regional problems. But this is really just focused on what can the county reasonably accomplish. We'll give you an example. We have another client that's a city government. They don't have a public transit entity, but they included public transit in their strategic plan. So now their public is saying 5 years from now, well, you haven't done anything on this. Well, they can't because they don't have a bus system, right? They can't do anything. So we really try to draw those boundaries pretty clearly. If there are areas where we could think about partnerships or think about, kind of broader engagement, we did include that in the plan because we heard that quite strongly from you. And we did include that where applicable. Any questions about the strategic framework? Nope. Okay. Great. So mission, vision, values. This is the fun part. So we worked together with all of you to establish a new vision statement for the county. So Curry County is a place where people want to live and visit, known for our safe communities, resilient economy, affordable lifestyle, and spectacular natural beauty. Your vision statement is kind of a 10-year plus statement. A vision statement may not change from plan to plan. Any questions, comments, final thoughts on the vision statement before we move forward with the plan? Nope. Okay, great work.
Yeah. About resilient economy, that's an area we need to keep working on. I don't know if we're known for that, but I hope we
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely forward-looking. And this was really due to, some really great work on part of the management team as well as the Board of Commissioners in terms of coming up with a vision statement that resonated.
If I could, we discussed this with management meeting last year, and I know Commissioner Boyce, you said, are we known for resilient economy? There was a discussion whether the dig should be the word tense B, or Curry County B in place, which has, I think, both a present context and an aspirational context. But I don't know how that was committed back to you all from the director of the management. Not on the tape. Thanks, Eric. Anyway, so the management group did have a discussion about changing that verb tense, which would address, I think, Commissioner Boyce's comments, so, thank you.
And just a follow-up on that, so all of those comments were submitted to the consultant, and then they have the final say, because they're the experts on it, whether it should be an is or a be and how to, I know the management team also questioned the organization or the prioritization of some of the things that are in the plan, and the consultant had explained that, this is what the populace, this is the priority they set. So there's some things they were limited and they couldn't change, or some things which, in their professional opinion, shouldn't be changed. So some of the changes that were made by the management team did not get put into this final draft. They were given to the consultant, though, and I do have that if there's any questions on that.
Commissioner Gold?
I kind of read this statement as this is where we want to be.
Correct.
So the is doesn't bother me.
It could be is, it could be will be. I think the message of the statement is the same regardless of that verb tense. So if you want us to change it, we're happy to change it, but it doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of actually what the statement intends.
Okay.
Okay, so mission statement. So this is the mission statement of the government, and we worked on many different mission statements with the management team, and worked and got down to actually a really great, impactful, very short statement, which is our mission is to provide high-quality public services. And the management team was very happy with this mission statement, so we're in support of that. Julie, did you want to say anything about that?
Just that it was longer.
Yeah.
And last week when the managers met, they're like, we want something short and sweet that we can put on our logos, put on our stationery. So it was just to the point. This is what we want to do.
Yeah. And this might be a mission statement that sticks around for a long time, so that's good. And it's easy for you to remember, right? You have 15 seconds in an elevator with somebody, you can give them the mission statement, so that's good. So values, this is who we are as an organization. So, so the management team selected ethical, accountable, financially responsible, respectful, and committed. And you'll see a couple of things that reflect back to both the vision statement and to the mission statement. So for example, we're dedicated to providing high quality services. Respectful was actually a term that came up our very first work session, within the first couple of minutes, talking about how do we define ourselves and who do we want to be as an organization. We have a healthy work environment, we're respectful toward each other, we provide customer service in a respectful manner. I will tell you that doesn't always come up when we do work sessions with our clients, so that's good on your team for really coming up with those things. Any questions or comments about organizational values?
Commissioner Boyce?
Yeah, I just have, when the time is right, just a couple things to add about natural resources.
Sure.
That I don't, may need a little additional highlight information. So that would be firefighting and just managing the force. So you might chime in there when you think it would be appropriate to add or discuss it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so one thing I wanted to just talk a little bit about with respect to mission, vision, and values are, even if you aren't in the meat of the plan every day, as those charged with governance, these three items can really help you in terms of decision making. And one of the things that we like to think about is, say we have a new program or service that's proposed. It might not be something that's in the strategic plan. It might be something that, someone is really excited about, but we can use these as a check to see, should we pursue this, right? So does it align with our mission? Is it going to help us achieve our vision? And is it in line with our values? And if it's not, then we shouldn't pursue it. And we should really think about, are we adhering to our strategic plan and adhering to how we define ourselves as an organization when we're making decisions about resource allocation, when we're thinking about going off in a new direction. It can be a very powerful tool. It's easy to remember these. Lots of our clients have just this part of the plan printed out, and it's on the dais on your side when you're in meetings. And it can be a really great reminder of where are we going and who are we, particularly as we have natural turnover in elected positions. That can be a really strong reminder of why we're here and what we all agreed to do. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our strategic goals. We typically have, I would say, 4 to 7 strategic goals for any community. Goals tend to be broad. They may or may not change between strategic plans. We developed these goals. First, we did an external and internal analysis of the organization and did quite a bit of work just learning about the county through our interviews, through our survey of both the management and the community, and working with the community. We came up with a long list of goals. We worked with the management team to get down to a shorter list of goals, and then we worked with all of you to get down to our final prioritized list of goals. And so this is what we came up with. So number 1 goal, probably not a surprise based on all the conversations we've had so far, is financial stability. And we define that by saying ensuring the county has adequate and sustainable financial funding to continue delivering core services to residents. Supporting that goal, you could almost say, are the rest of the goals, which are economic development, quality of life, improving public trust, and infrastructure. And so these are presented in priority order. This priority was determined by both the survey from the public, input from the management, and then individual discussions with each of you coming up with this priority order. You'll know from reading through the plan that lots of other elements that we discussed are underneath the umbrella of these goals, but we feel that these 5 goals really represent, if we're going to focus our resources for the next 5 years, here's where we're going to go. Any questions about these?
My only question would be, when you say core services, you might have somewhere, what are core services?
Yeah. Julie, actually, we talked about that quite a bit yesterday. Did you want to provide any input?
Sure. So there are mandated services, and then that we have to provide, and then there's core services. And we as a team have to define what those core services are yet. What is it that we feel we absolutely have to provide versus ones that would be nice to provide. So we have to narrow that down yet, what that is. And that's a process with the board and the managers.
How about a workshop to talk about, 1, what are mandated services, and 2, what are those that people want?
Sure.
Wants and needs.
So after the plan is adopted, one thing we have is, and Colleen was talking about the template or the to-do list, And that's one of the first to-do things we have to do is to define that. So we
Yeah,
will be
that's-
doing that.
In my mind, it just
Yeah.
stuck out, so.
Commissioner Boyce?
I could tell you in about 2 minutes what the mandated services are. I have them right here, and it's a surprising list.
Yeah.
Good to know. I don't know if we need a workshop. Wouldn't be a bad idea, but it's
Well, we have
it's
to have,
eye-opening.
we have to have one after this is finished.
I know, but for mandated services,
Right.
that's good.
No,
Yeah.
the combination of.
Yeah, and we do have, I think, the mandated services on the website, or we used it
Right.
at one point.
Right.
So we just have to define what the core ones are for us.
But I appreciate you bringing that up. That's something we're going to have to be involved in down the road. Closer look.
Okay, so I'll just move on and give you an example of the detailed plan document. So we chose economic development as an example. So in each section of the plan, you'll see the strategic goal. You'll see again how we choose to define economic development. And then in each area we have the objectives. So these are, the high level, here are kind of the midterm things that we're going to do to support this objective. So, or the goal. So within economic development, the first objective is create and implement a prioritized economic development plan. So our objectives are achievable. They might not be achievable in a moment, but they are achievable things. And then we have strategies under there that are exactly what we need to do to get there. So when management is putting together their annual work programs, they're able to tackle, okay, here's what we're going to work on this year and here's how we're going to do it, right? And how we can assign resources to them. So each area has a number of objectives, strategies that support those objectives. Some of the strategies are things to consider. So we're not necessarily telling you what to do, but we're saying things like, evaluate opportunities for certain things. And then in every section we have performance measures. So we recommend performance measures that are first, based on data that the county already has, right? So you have limited staff, you have limited time. We don't want you to run out and create additional data sources. So first we took a look at, okay, what information is available. The second is things that are meaningful to us, so, and things that we can track over time. So for example, can we look at the total business tax base and how it changes over time and look at our performance according to that. And that can help tell us, are we achieving our economic development goal? So we worked with staff to identify quite a few performance measures for each section. You may receive reporting on these on a quarterly, biennial, annual basis, depending on the type of data. We would expect at a minimum that you would get an annual update on strategic plan progress that would have performance measures here. And then we also identified milestone measures. So those are kind of activity measures, right? We say in the strategic plan, here are some things we're going to do, like complete a tourism marketing plan. So we want to be able to come to you and say, yes, we checked this box off. We would hope that by the end of the strategic plan period, when you're ready to update the plan, create a new plan, that most of these milestone measures are checked off. We've never seen a client that's had 100% of things checked off. Anybody who has 100% of things checked off didn't aim high enough on their strategic plan. But we would hope that you would get, probably about 80% there within the next 5 years. Do you have questions about how the plan is organized? Okay. So then I'm just going to talk about next steps a little bit. So the first is that we're currently in a public comment period, and so we'll be incorporating public comment and any additional comment from management and from the three of you. As I mentioned before, we'll provide a draft letter for the front of the plan to include in the final document, so all of your signatures will be on the document as well. Plan adoption, so we anticipate on the 19th, you said, 19th. That the plan will be adopted. And then what we would ask when you make that motion to adopt the plan as part of the motion is to direct staff to begin implementation of the plan. And then staff will start developing an implementation plan, and you'll start seeing some results. Any questions for me?
I think I'm good.
I'm good too. Thank
Okay.
you.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thanks again, Mr. Chair. Just on the economic development part, I saw tourism mentioned a lot. Of course, that was my life for a lot of years. We're still a forestry, farming, fishing-based economy. That's where the year-round jobs come from, not so much on tourism. Nobody wants to promote tourism more than I, but I don't want to lose sight of how important, and I'm not saying this plan doesn't it just doesn't seem to cover that right now under the economic development category that you're outlining there. But I just want to emphasize we are a natural resource-based economy.
Yeah, and I think
especially
you'll
South
see that
County.
in the plan detail.
Pardon me?
You'll see that in the plan detail, for sure.
Okay, so I might have preempted you there, and I apologize, but economic development is really a big one for all of us. Yes.
Just a comment on that. So this plan says you need to do an economic development plan, and then that economic development plan will go into all the details on the economic development stuff, such as the forestry and the benefits and everything. So this is kind of broader, saying, hey, you need to get this done. This is your marching orders. This is what you have to go do. And then when they do that, when Summer works on that plan, that is where we're going to see more detail about the tourism and the forestry and basically those things that affect economic development. But this,
Clears it up.
if the board agrees with this or supports this is, you know, as everyone has said, this is one of our top priorities, one of our top 5 goals. So we have to move forward and do that.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
So for that final document in the coming days, it has truly been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you. I do have one audience member that wants to address the board that maybe if that creates a question for you, you could come back up.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes, good morning.
Good morning, David Barnes. I've looked at a lot of strategic plans, master plans, business plans, and things over the years, and a plan is a method for achieving an end. It's the detailed formulation of a program of action. And what I'm reading here is a lot of regurgitation of the things that were spoken about, but not really any plans. You know, I go to the first page, financial stability. Develop a long-term financial plan for the county. Municipal finance managers are few and far in between. They're hard to come by. Who's going to develop this plan for us? It says consider appointing a fiscal sustainability committee. We have one of those. It's called the Citizens Revenue Task Force. Commissioner Boyce advised on disbanding that last month. Moving down the page, it says to review the county fees to reflect the cost of services. You've already done that. Turn the page over to the next part of it, and it says consider assessing additional potential revenue sources, including a fuel tax. There's one public gas station in Curry County, in unincorporated Curry County. There's one down in Harbor. You know, it talks about incorporating staff and community input. Seems to me the only people that you mostly see is people who come in here on county business. I understand the difficulties in getting people to come out and to participate. I went to the meeting at the library over here. There was, 8 or 10 of us there, Julie, I think?
Yeah, there wasn't many.
There wasn't very many, and Julie says that other attendance was down too. You know, maybe that's the people crying out that, we don't want more government, so we don't want to, participate in it. But even, as I move through this further and further, seek collaborative partnership-based solutions to fund county services with assessment and all these other things. Who are we going to go into these agreements with? The cities are separate entities. They've shown over the years that they don't particularly care to deal with the county government. Going on to the next page, on page 9, it says, continue effort to hire a fuller part-time grant manager. That got shot down in the spring. Y'all shot that down in the spring. Is there continuing efforts? I thought that went away. The next one is identify long-term cost savings. You just committed $50,000 a year for 5 years for updating your software, so that one's already done. 2 pieces down, it says outsourcing services that can provide a lower cost via the private sector. All I got to say on that one is Curry Community Health. And I'll leave it at that. Do you really want to go into another one of those? The next page that she just had up here about economic development and tourism, the county already has 4, 5, 6, 7 different tourism boards that all serve different functions. Why not put all them together and let them come up with what they want? The next is develop a comprehensive marketing plan. I would think that would come out of the different tourism boards. Turn to page 12. It says, continue to work to improve relationships between the county and regional port cities and other special districts. I don't know where these people have been the last few months, but I think the ship on this body working with the special districts has long since sailed, and that's not going to happen. You know, most of the businesses in this county are in the cities. They're not in the county area, and I think, you know, look at that. But page 3, or next goal, quality of life, is to continue to work to implement adjustments to fee structure. That contradicts what you said in goal on page 1, which is to jack up the fee structures to get all that you can out of them. You know, it says the next one is support hiring a local or regional coordinator. You denied a housing coordinator a few months ago also. That got shot down. And it says build relationships with housing-focused nonprofits. I think there's just as many of them as there are tourism boards here. So, you know, we keep going down. You know, next is, you know, duplicate services, public safety, and consider combining people together. You know, that got shot down last month. You know, we have a policy on road use. You know, special in district for the sheriff lost twice at the polls. You know, another one here is to better sell things. Commissioner Pash, you started that at the beginning of the year when you came on here. You know, it just, I don't, this isn't a strategic plan. This is a strategic outline. And, you know, it doesn't look to me like the people who prepared it even read the book on it. You know, on us, you know, it says hire communications director. We don't need one. We don't have one of those. You know, all these things that we've already gone through that these people are suggesting we do. I hope you reject this outright. Thank you.
Do you want me to comment? So, I think most of you know that I was a planner originally before I went back to school to become a public administrator. This meets the qualifications of a strategic plan. There was days where strategic plans were inches thick, and as you know, they sit on a shelf and no one reads them. The trend in planning about 10 years ago was to reduce it so it's very concise and something you can easily follow. Yes, some of this is being done or some of it has been tried, but this is what our public and our employees are telling us. If you try to go back, try harder, work on more collaborative relationships, keep trying as far as like the housing coordinator. It says continue the efforts to, this is something that the public and the employees have said, this is something you need to do and continue working on it. We know it got shot down the way it was proposed the first time. And actually, I don't think it was shot down, it was put on hold. But this is the marching orders. It says just keep trying, keep at it. Yeah, you have, it talks about an example as a gas tax or fuel tax as an example. It's something that they feel that we need to research, whether it be one gas station or perhaps there will be 2, 3, 4 someday. It doesn't matter. They're saying these are what we think you as a board and the future board should be committed to doing. So if this board didn't support it, perhaps the next board does. So again, it's the, just like I said, it's the marching orders. This is what the public and the employees have said we need to do to get the job done.
If I could, so the employees, we talked about the committees, and we heard that it was from the public surveys where that came from, because that didn't come from the employees to add committees or add positions. But then I heard today that there were I think we had more people at the management meeting than at the public output if there were only 6 folks at those things. So to think that 6 people creates a marching order, that's a interesting concept. I don't know. Again, this meets the qualifications of a strategic plan, but the way it was formulated, and again, from the employee's point of view, I've been in all those meetings, I don't think the ideas of hiring the grant coordinator, hiring the communications manager, adding more committees to the county was ideas of the employees. So I just want to speak on behalf of the employees.
Commissioner Gold?
I think you also mentioned a survey that was put out to the public, and how many respondents?
So we had over
100?
We had over 100 responses from the public on the survey. Plus we had a lot of phone calls made. And in addition, when we surveyed the employees, over half of the employees responded. So it wasn't just the managers that were commenting. We were considering the input of the employees and the public that did respond. And when we did meet with the managers, they were like, no, we don't like the idea of a fiscal sustainability committee. They didn't like the idea of an outside committee reviewing these things. So the plan, if you read the details, it was changed to say, or an internal review committee composed of staff. So we had these inputs from the public, from the employees. The managers were the last ones to review it. They did some final tweaking on it. Like I said, those were incorporated in here. I think that this is a lot for us to take in and do in 5 years, and I think we just need to march forward. I mean, this is why we've decided to proceed with the plan.
Just one last thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Citizens Revenue Task Force, Julie, didn't we learn something about that task force?
Yes, I was going to bring that up under my director's comments. And that's why this doesn't say Citizen Revenue Task Force. Because, and I'll just bring it up now, is I looked at the order, and actually that committee by order is no longer effective. So what it did is it had a task assigned to it and a timeline assigned to it, which is complete. So, and I'll bring it up later, but if we want to have that committee, we need to reappoint it or do a new order on it. But that's a separate issue.
Well, it just, Mr. Barnes seemed to indicate that we already had a committee, and we really don't. So.
Correct, yeah.
Anything further? Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a big ship, and there's been a lot of discussion for 10 years minimum on how to turn it and how to overcome some of the issues. And just in the last year, the financial hits that we have taken, a lot of them emergency related, we're dealing with that. Will this help? Maybe not, but I think it's certainly worth a try. In relation to the cities, I have thought about attending city council meetings. I've learned a lot about attending port meetings, and they're not indifferent to...
Send email reminders every year. And then, of course, they get we give them time to comply with the ordinance, and if not, I'm sure we'll send a second reminder to try and get the money.
So then the money that comes into the coffers, that goes towards code enforcement, is that correct?
The money that comes in the coffers goes to admin, which is the community development person who's basically doing the data entry and stuff. 15% goes to code enforcement, and that's estimated at about $200,000. And then
Did you say 50 or 15?
15.
Okay.
And then the remainder goes to the sheriff's office, which is estimated right now, I think I had it at about $300,000.
Okay, so 85, well, you had what, 5% admin?
15.
Okay. Okay.
And when I had initially run the numbers on this, I had spoke with staff from the sheriff's department and said about how many of the people that are going through the jail that you're having to deal with are out-of-county residents. And when you run the numbers, it was 16%, and then when you're looking at the 300,000, that covered about 16% of their costs for that.
Okay.
So basically, the program, it's not one to make money, it's one to basically pay for the services, which means that's less than that we have to take out of the road fund or out of the general fund.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
One question I had on this, I know I'm doing some of the maintenance, some of these properties that aren't being kept up. I've read some language on this, and I don't see why we're not leaning properties that we have to go on to do a lot of maintenance. A lot. I mean, I remember a couple up in Port Orford that were burnt. That were had to be torn down, those kind of things. Why the county doesn't lien these properties if they're having to go on them to do a lot of work, and I don't know how much work council or you've done on that in the past. It's just a question of why don't we? Is there a legal issue?
No, we do.
Okay, I was told we don't.
So if I could, the way I understand this, if you look at 2.170 or 2.17080 and 2.17090 in here, it talks about additional authority. Curry County Code and Law Enforcement, we recommend the owner implement additional maintenance and security measures, so we can recommend the owner do it, but then violation and penalties, violation deemed a public nuisance may be subject to additional penalties as provided in the county code. So public nuisance allows us to go onto the property and clean it up, and then we can put a lien on the property for the cost of the cleanup and then foreclose on that lien. We actually did that twice here in the recent past through my office. We did it once down in Harbor. Well, we did it twice down in Harbor. And so, and one of them was against a bank who was holding a property without having foreclosed on it. So that remedy is available to us, in my opinion, under 2.17090 sub 2, where it brings in the other parts of the code where we declare something a public nuisance and we can abate.
Okay.
And then abatement, and the next part of abatement is lien. So,
Commissioner Boyce?
But this just adds in a positive way, I think, to the whole process, and that takes time.
This
takes a lot of time.
I see this, that step I described is after the end of a lot of steps, and this allows, in my opinion, the owners to handle it before we get to that measure.
Bingo, great.
Okay, we have some public comments. Mr. Barnes? You're first. You're going to pass?
No, but I'll be brief. David Barnes again. We're talking about properties that are problem properties, that have vacant houses on them, that are close to cities or something like that. But a large majority of these properties are going to be out in distant county, timber properties, other properties that people bought for investment that they haven't built on yet. We're conflating a problem with just a larger body of things, and we're going to be charging people who might live 35 miles out, Forest Road 3310, own a piece of property out there. They're going to be paying because properties up here close by are having problems. And I just, we're conflating all of this together when there's two separate groups of properties here. There's the ones that have been built on, that have houses that are in some state of vacancy or disrepair. And then we have other properties we're going to be billing the same tax to that are raw and undeveloped properties. And I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bryson? Morning.
Hi. My name's Kathy Bryson. I live at 29797 Turner Street. I was a real estate appraiser here for 30-plus years. I just recently retired. My main concern is similar, that we're penalizing non-owner occupied property owners. And those people have already been slammed with a really arduous state legislation as far as it's like, why own property? And I don't think we want to discourage people from owning property in Curry County, okay? So I know that some of the realtors are concerned about this, and I'm kind of surprised they're not here today. But if I purchase a property and I want to retire in 5 years, I should be paying the same amount, and maybe I'll have a tenant in there. You have not addressed at all the fact that the majority of these properties are perhaps vacation rentals, just properties that people are holding for, like you said, vacant land. I'm going to build on it when I retire. I think it's an ill-conceived ordinance, and I hope that you address the vacant properties. And I was reading online about properties like neglected properties, and the places that have the ordinances really stick, they actually escalate the costs each year, because they want those properties to be turned into something that's going to help the county. And so by discouraging non-owner occupied property owners and vacant property owners from purchasing in this county, they're just going to move someplace else. Those are investment owners, and they're not going to stay in Curry County if this is not a friendly place for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyce?
Ms. Bryson, yeah, something we've learned through our code enforcement efforts, we're identifying some properties that have been vacant so long, and houses that the original intent maybe was back in the 80s to buy a piece of property, come here and retire someday, but they've lost interest, or their plans didn't work out. Subsequently, family members move in, or nobody moves in, and then vagrants move in, and that's.
But you're talking about this percentage. What about the vacation rentals over in Rogue Shores? Okay, I mean, those properties are maintained. I had a vacant property down in Brookings, and I lived in the county, and people came and dumped cars on there. Okay, they dumped cars in there twice. I had to have them hauled off. So I think it's a mistake to say that everybody that is a non-Curry County resident that owns a property here is a problem. You're taking a really small piece, a really small group of properties, and you're just lumping them. I think it's not written properly, because I don't think property has to be occupied by the owner to be maintained. That's my opinion.
Commissioner Boyce?
Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we're learning that small percentage you're talking about is growing dramatically, and that's what has really given us some pretty serious concern.
So why not address it as vacant residential properties instead of, if I have a rental here and I live in Coos Bay, it's like after a while I'm going to say, well, I'm going to move my investment money to Coos Bay. It's like, why take away the incentive for people to own property here that are good owners? You're, like I said, you're just lumping everything together that isn't, they're not all like properties. And the administrative costs are going to be high because guess what? If you're talking timber companies and you're talking that they're paying this $100 for one property, who's going to determine what one property is? You have 6 tax lots, but they're one legal entity. So the assessor's office is going to have to identify how many of those parcels are actually, because they cross a section line, that doesn't make them a separate legal parcel. So you're going to have a lot more administrative costs than you're anticipating, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify something for the record?
Yes, Ms.
I do want to clarify, we do have properties beyond the urban fringe that have a lot of issues. We do have a lot in Harbor, but we also do have them pretty far out too. Sometimes because it's in a remote area, people feel they can do more because they feel no one is watching. But we do get complaints on them, and Dave Fortman has had to address remote properties as well. So.
Yes, ma'am. Briefly, please.
Yeah. Excuse me?
I say briefly, please.
Oh, very briefly. I don't think a $100 ordinance for property is going to solve the magnitude of the outlying property. Sorry,
Thank you.
not finding it.
So do I have a motion?
The motion would be to forward it for public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes?
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next we have 7D, to approve a resolution declaring Medal of Honor community. Basically, the Bend Heroes Foundation is a nonprofit organization that was successfully able to make 451 miles of U.S. Highway 20 in Oregon designated as an Oregon Medal of Honor highway. They also were able to have the state pass a law designating 12 cities as Medal of Honor cities and communities. Mr. Tobiasen, the chair of the foundation, contacted us, sent us all a letter to inform us of the prestigious designation, and forwarded also to us 3 plaques that are going to be displayed in a prominent location in the county. Attempts were made to display the plaques at the Curry County Historical Museum in Gold Beach, but the attempts were unsuccessful. And since Agnes is the selected museum in Gold Beach, is the selected community museum in Gold Beach, those attempts were unsuccessful as well. I'm sorry, I just got offline there. Since Agnes is the selected community, public places were researched in Agnes as well, but none were open to the public on a routine basis. Lodge owner Bill McNair was instrumental in giving a tour of Agnes to the foundation and has offered to display these plaques in his business in Agnes. The plaques designate Agnes as a Medal of Honor community. One is a framed photo of Agnes Medal of Honor recipient Nathan Edgerton. Ms. Melzer, would you hold one of those up, please?
Civil War. That's amazing.
This is this is Medal of Honor winner Nathan Edgerton.
There it is.
The next one is the actual medal, a picture of the Medal of Honor. And the third is the title plaque. So anyway, if there's anyone that's interested in being part of this ceremony, you can contact me on this. I want to say, for those of you that don't know, the Medal of Honor is the highest honor that a military service person gets in the United States. I had the honor of serving my commanding officer, my direct commanding officer in the Marine Corps, 2nd Marine Division, was at that time Major Barnum, Harvey Barnum, Medal of Honor winner in Vietnam. It is something that changes your life forever, and to have one of these Medal of Honor winners. This is actually, I think, the 3rd Medal of Honor winner in history, was it, Ms. Schmelzer?
I can't remember. It was so long, I mean, it's been a while since I read it, but.
Yeah, this was from long ago, and to have one of those, he was raised on the East Coast and decided to come to Oregon and settle in Agnes and spend the rest of his days. So we are going to honor Agnes with his Medal of Honor, make them a Medal of Honor community. And we are looking to, down the road, have the state through ODOT and Richard Christensen from the County Road Department also place road signs at the end of, in specific places in the county that we'll decide on to honor this county as having Medal of Honor winner. So again, I'd like to recognize this person, and we are looking to have a resolution declaring this a Medal of Honor community.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Mr.
I would
Boyce?
like to make a motion to honor Nathan Edgerton, U.S. Army. As you stated, retired in Agnes right after the Civil War, as this designated Medal of Honor City Community Award.
I'll second that.
Thanks for working on this.
Any further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash.
Absolutely aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
I just want to make a brief, well, I'll save that for later. Next, we have 7E, volunteer recognition, Commissioner Gold.
April is to honor our volunteers, and I would like to have some of our volunteer groups. I started listing them all, and it's not possible for us to have every volunteer group here, but Curry County could not run without volunteers. They are a very integral part of our community. So I would like to honor some of these volunteers at our meetings, and I'm talking possibly 5 individuals that represent a group, for instance, Red Cross that does all of the county, Lions Club, Seroptimus, schools, talk about what they do and what their volunteers do for them, and have them each come up and spend maybe 3 to 5 minutes at our meeting. And I'm looking at 5 different individuals. I will make sure that they don't go over their time limit and give them specifics about what they need to talk about. So I would like a motion for us to be able to do this, and I will be more than willing to organize it.
So moved. Do I have a second?
You have discussion, Mr. Chair?
After the second?
Okay, I'll second. Thank you.
Further discussion?
Thank you. I made a little bit of a list, and I know this is a great concept, Commissioner Gold. Don't overlook the churches, the food co-ops, certainly
got
the
it all.
firefighters, the volunteers. This is, yeah, very
Do you want me
good.
to tell you what's on my list so far?
I'd love to have the public hear that, yes.
Okay, I've got county fair, police, scouts, special districts who have all the boards that are volunteer, and the schools, veterans organizations, Shriners, Elks, Emblem Club, Garden Club, animal shelters, CASA, Wally's House, Oasis, Soroptimus, Lions Club, libraries, fire departments. The county has lots of volunteers, food banks, Red Cross, schools, all of those. So if you think of anything else,
I
let
think
me
you
know.
may have only missed two.
Well, no, like I said,
Do you have your pen handy there?
yes, I do.
Trash dogs
Oh, that's a good one.
and Curry County Public Lands Access Group, CCPLA, and I'll send you a link to their
Okay,
website.
thank you.
And Trash Dogs, I think you got
Those are good ones.
almost all the rest of them. I didn't think of any of
Okay, at first, I was thinking of doing certificates along with this, but I can see it's going to be impossible without, offending some people, but,
If I may, Mr. Chair,
yeah.
She's fin-
when you're done, I'm sorry.
That was public lands access,
Yes, Curry County Public Lands Access.
and when you send me that, if you could send me contact information, because I'm going to have to contact all of these individuals.
Surely
Forget
will.
the Veterans Wreaths Across America and Curry Kids Safety City.
Good job.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I did do some notes in my agenda to look at those folks. That's why I asked him how many volunteers were included. So,
One quick addition, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Got really good news related to that. We've been really pushing and trying to help support, recruit volunteer fire departments for our 13 Curry County groups, and Brett Weidmeiler of Coos Curry Forest Protective Association reported to me Monday night that they just, in the last 2 weeks, have found 31 new recruits that they're in the process of training. So that's some of the best news I've heard in a long time, because all of them are a little short-handed, as you know. Thank you, that's all I have. Very good.
All right.
so we have a motion?
Yes, we need a vote. So call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gold.
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Chair Pash.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next, we have asking the board to approve
Full board sign the letter.
Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion?
Because of Bridges level, you may have referenced this meeting back, but it's such a tight turn in the Bridges level, so there's no way to get the grade on the turn. And so it's been an issue for a long time. So yes, I support the letter.
Okay. Further discussion? Roll, please.
Clarification, letter from you or a letter from the board?
It'll be from the entire board. So we'll change the signature line from 1 to 3 and change the logos on the letterhead as well.
I'll take it.
Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Yes.
Chair Pash?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next we are going to look and discuss AOC, Association of Oregon Counties, and their dues. And I just would like to have a conversation here, if we can, about the AOC. I know, Commissioner Boyce, you are heavily involved in them. And I'd like council to be included in this conversation as well with CIS and, just some of the things that we gain from. We've got a bill, of course, for $21,000 from AOC. And I just asked Ms. Schmelzer to put this on the agenda so as commissioners we can discuss it further and just talk about it. Commissioner Gold?
Well, I do know that in order to get our insurance through CIS, we need to be members of AOC. But also in looking at this, not all of these are mandatory. They have voluntary dues. And I just added those up, and that's $5,784.86. And if we eliminated the voluntary dues, our bill would be $15,268. So you kind of have to look at wants and needs. I know we want to be on all of these subcommittees, and it's a nice thing, but do we have to be? That's another question. We can't be voting members, but we certainly could participate.
And that's, kind of one of the reasons I want to have a conversation about this was because there's voluntary dues like the video lottery defense funds. I mean, do we have a voice in that in Salem? AOC is our voice, but these dues, a lot of these, I don't know that we need to be involved in federal land management subcommittee dues. You're probably more involved in any of that and have more to give to this board on that than I do. So, your thoughts on some of these these dues and AOC in general. I mean, I see a huge shakeup in AOC. I've seen a lot of management issues with them since I've been involved and elected as a commissioner. And I just want to know that it's this board's opinion that these are dollars well spent.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'm very happy that the board is looking at possible ways that we can cut costs. It doesn't cost us any additional beyond the subcommittees. It's interesting to note, pretty important to note, I think, that this is a short session going on right now. And if I may, one of us needs to leave here about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm sort of tongue-in-cheek, sort of not, but this bill right here, Senate Bill 1530, and I'll show you, and I think you'll follow.
I read this.
How it's related. One of us needs to go testify as a small rural county what this will do. Whatever, a short session is not designed for major bills and legislation like what we are looking at right now. And there's also already a threat of the Senate Republicans walking out because of this bill. But what it would do to Curry County, if you just took our road department, well, and our sheriff's department too, let's just say it's 20 cents a gallon that they're going to add on. What that will do to our budget and our ability to maintain roads and conduct proper law enforcement in the areas that we're responsible for, I mean, it's huge. Federal lands management, we just got through, the connection person there is Susan Morgan, and we just got through on the AOCC and prevailed in 2 critical lawsuits. And we're not done. And I want to give the public just a little bit of background on what that means to our county. First of all, we're going to have a better say. I'll stay with AOCC, and then I'll go back to AOC, forgive me. But on those 2 lawsuits, we're going we're going to be able to harvest more timber, which we're on the shared receipts, which will be 3% of every timber dollar in the 18 BLM counties. We'll come back to Curry County. Actually, it's almost 4%. And the judge basically ruled, obey the Act of Congress, the ONC Act of 1937. You're going to sustain in timber harvest proper yield at 500,000 million board feet, 500,000 board feet per year, and it grows by 1.2 billion. So our sights now are on trying to catch up just closely with that growth and what that will mean for our ability to pay our bills. So So I mentioned about, first of all, we'll have better access to our lands through the work of AOC. I'm going away from AOCC now, but it's okay. You know, I met with Merv George Monday night and Tuesday morning on just these issues on what he sees for our future as it relates to proper timber harvest, building the forest back. I could talk about that now. I can wait till Commissioner comments, but it is very, very good news for our county and the dollars that will be coming back here. We need to absolutely maximize our revenue, have a better say, better access. We're just talking, Commissioner Gold, about Curry County Public Lands access. That's mostly retired foresters that live in Curry County that are trying to keep those roads open, to maintain them properly, all that goes with that. So serving on these committees, I'm not going Monday because I'm just a little bit overloaded. I am going to be able to call in for that one. But when you go back to what does this organization do, especially for rural counties? First of all 36 counties are in. And I followed the difficulties that Jackson County had when they pulled out of AOC. They're back in now, and I think that is in the best interest of their citizens. But I just had Andy Smith, who is the primary veterans rep from AOC in my office last week, talking about housing. They have 3 different sections of roads that they help all the road masters and all the road programs within the state and connect that. The county connections that I've had, not just with our neighboring counties, but all up and down the coast, the Eastern Oregon commissioners, the struggles they're going through, relating to them, working with them, very beneficial. All the connections we have with the state agencies. I mean, it's a long list. I mentioned the short session right now. Work within the governor's office. Work we're trying to do to get the money for the property for the fire training center. AOC has been a tremendous benefit to us on the Sudden Oak death issue. They have facilitated the first 2 years, they didn't charge us anything. Did not charge the Oregon Department of Forestry, the Forest Service, the BLM, Department of Agriculture, the counties, on our whole task force. Now they're charging us because we've raised the money, thanks to Rocksmith and Hurd, just for this next year, $1.7 million to battle this disease, and that prompted Senator Merkley to work very hard to get $1.2 million, and we're just getting started. I offered to the board the other day the money that the state is looking at for sod and how important that is. AOC facilitates the Oregon Coast Trail work. That's something we can all, will be in the future, very proud of. They're always available for questions. They're dedicated to help. They have an excellent staff. You referenced, yeah, there was some turmoil. That turned out to be good in the long term. And so, especially with Curry County, as we talked about at the strategic planning presentation today, we're a natural resource-based economy. And so that is right up our alley. And I could keep going. And yes, Commissioner Gold, thank you for mentioning on the CIS insurance. We need to keep a real clear focus on the critical nature of what that means to our county.
Okay.
So,
Commissioner Gold?
If we were to eliminate the voluntary fund or dues, would that preclude you from going to these meetings or being part of the discussion or testifying?
You know, the answer to that is they'll do anything they can to accommodate us, and they have, up to a point, but it is a good question. You know, I'm feeling a little guilty because we're not there tomorrow. I know the Eastern Oregon counties will be there, other coastal rural counties will be there. There's so much nervous energy up there on what this carbon sequestration bill, if it goes through, will mean to us and the cost involved. But no, I can't get up there tomorrow, and I can't get there Monday either. So, you know, ordinarily, yes, I would say I need to be there, or one of us needs to be there.
But I don't think you're answering the question. The
I don't
question
know.
was, if we were to forget about paying the voluntary dues, but being part of AOC, would this preclude you from testifying or from being part of the discussion in these committees?
No, the AOC doesn't determine who is going to testify at the House or Senate committees that would be
Okay, so the
beneficial.
answer would be
Very
no.
good.
Okay.
I'm trying, and it is a mixed match of what they're willing to do for rural counties and how they're able to help. So we could certainly approach them. How can we save money? What I'm hearing the board say is you would like to stay active as a member, but I'm getting a little wore out on traveling too, and I mentioned to Director Smelser that at some point one of the other commissioners needs to take on this lead. And I've also heard that AOC isn't that important to the county. I'm not quoting anybody here, but I strongly disagree with that, and I just did my best to give you a multitude of areas that I think are very important, connected with Association of Oregon Counties.
Well, I will be the one that says that I've had doubts that AOC is very important to the county. I know they do good work. I don't know a lot of what they do, so I have stood by the side and not said a lot about it. I'm involved in NACO. I'm actually, again, one of the vice chairs of one of the committees there. But when I go to NACO this year, I'm going to, if I don't see some product, if I don't start to see some value for our dollar, I'm going to ask that we withdraw from NACO. If these organizations cannot step up and back up what they say, and I'm not saying AOC doesn't, and I know NACO is doing a lot of work as well, but I guess, like you say, it takes up a lot of our time to be at these meetings and doing what we're supposed to be doing. And it's like I told them in NACO, I don't need my name on something as a chair or a vice chair. If you're going to put me on this list, put me to work. And I very seldom get any calls for action on anything, and I don't know if that's for whatever reason. It's troubling me that we're involved in some of these things that we don't see any bang for our dollar out of. So that's why I called for the question to talk about it. I'm glad we had the conversation. It's a very good conversation. After hearing what you said, I think we should probably remain in AOC. I guess the question would then be, do we need to be in the voluntary, their language is their voluntary dues. And those voluntary dues are for 4 of the 9 categories in their bill. Which, again, I think we would not lose any voice in Salem for that. I know Brock Smith, has been a great voice for this county, and, I wonder sometimes if we need to attend the meetings or if we could send him a letter from the commissioners directing him on how we feel about what he's presenting up there, as opposed to having to always travel up there. That might be something that we might look at doing as a board. So, anyway, it was just a discussion item that I just wanted to come and talk about. Commissioner Gold?
Do we have an option at this point whether or not to pay the voluntary dues?
Ms. Melzer?
Yes, you do. And just for the record, this past year, we did not pay the voluntary dues.
Okay.
Commissioner Boyce?
Well, if I got to choose between NACO and AOC, I mean, I think, like our second meeting, I mentioned to you, hey, the big counties will cover for us. They'll be a good access, no charge. You'll have a voice with them. When it comes to AOC, we need to physically be there because it's right next to the Capitol. What impacts our citizens? That's, in my view, why we have to be there. And so, in the interest of trying to save a few dollars, whether we're going to D.C. or whether we're going to Salem, and I'm as happy as anyone else that you were involved, but I did tell you, is this our priority? And I was very happy and proud of you, and yet not participating fully. There's a lot smaller counties than us that are having the same kind of struggles. They don't miss a meeting. So, and if we didn't pay the volunteer dues last year, they're working with us already. And honestly, Director Smelter, I was not fully aware of exactly what the sequence was there.
So do we have I'm sorry, Commissioner Gold?
I was just going to make a motion that we stay a member of AOC, but skip paying the volunteer dues. So then our total cost would be $15,268.42.
Do I have a
According to my
second?
calculator.
Comment?
Do I have a second, please? I'll second. Further comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As long as that in no way jeopardizes our insurance with CIS. And I don't believe it does, but I want to double check.
No, we just need membership to get CIS.
Thank you, Council Huddle.
So roll, any further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Yes.
Chair Pash?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next we have the director's report.
Okay, I have a couple of things. First of all, I want to give you a report on the first quarter transient lodging tax revenues. Miranda, who runs the program, put together the numbers for us. And you have to keep in mind this is the reporting for the slowest quarter. So this was October through December. And altogether, we received $72,000. Of that $72,000, $25,000 goes to the fair, to the event center, I should say. $25,000 goes to the promotions committee, and $3,600 goes to cover staff's salary, and $18,000 of that goes to the sheriff. So just some rough projections. What we're looking at is for the year possibly $100,000 for the event center, $100,000 for the committee, $25,000 for staff, and possibly $75,000 to $100,000 for the sheriff.
Good.
So,
Can I ask one question? What were the projections on this?
oh, they projected,
Crazy numbers.
they said there was, I think, 5,000 units we would be collecting from, and there's like less than 500. I mean, the projections were in, I think it was like 2 million or something. We
For
just
one
don't see-
quarter?
They were projecting, I think it was 2 million, if I remember right, jogging my memory, for the year, and we're not going to be anywhere close.
Okay, just curious.
But it is a good program. We are at least, we're not going to be able to cover staff's expenses, I don't think. But that's something we can look at in the future as well. But just moving forward, it's going to do what we wanted. We wanted to be able to help with some initial stuff at the event center. We wanted to give that committee money to work with to improve infrastructure, tourism infrastructure in the unincorporated areas, whether that be developing trails or promotions or whatever that was. And we wanted to make sure there was money for the sheriff for the work he is doing to keep the visitors safe. So it's the beginning program, and we'll see how it goes. We'll just keep an eye on it.
Okay.
So I also wanted to talk about the Citizen Revenue Task Force. After the last discussion we had on that, I actually pulled out the order. The order that approved that committee said it was for a task, and it was actually supposed to be, the committee fulfilled this obligation last year. It said that it was valid until the report was done. We kept the committee, we actually met with them, at the last meeting, but I looked at the order and they're actually not a committee anymore. So we're going to need some board direction on, do we want to rename that committee? Do we want to give them a different task? Do we just want to dissolve it? You heard this morning that the strategic plan says that's one option, is to either have a committee looking at some financial stuff or a group of staff looking at that. So I'm going to need some direction on what you want to do with that. Right now, the way it stands is the committee is inactive. We have not notified the members of that yet, in case you wanted to go and renew the committee. But the way it was set up, it's ineffective right now. Not ineffective, I should say. It's not effective, as far as the order is not effective. So I'll bring that to a workshop.
I think if we're going to have a committee like this, there needs to be citizen input, as well as possibly, I don't know, one commissioner, or maybe we make them totally autonomous. So I don't know. I think it's something that we need to talk about.
Oh, so
actually in a workshop, and the reason I say that is you might want to give them more direction, not just getting revenue, but possibly how are we spending our money? You know, are there better ways?
if the board's okay with it, I'll schedule it for a workshop then to discuss how best to proceed with that.
Okay.
Okay, Code enforcement has been here before talking to us about an issue we're having in Harbor with a big transient camp that's on county property. And I just want to report back to you that the road crew will be going in there on February 12th to begin the cleanup of that property.
Commissioner Gold?
I just want to say one thing. The county right now is responsible for all the trash coming out of there. Would you like me to maybe call Luke and do a little negotiating with him?
That would be wonderful.
Okay. So I'm going to try to expand our 20% discount to include cleaning up trash off of these properties as well as the RVs. So.
And I think that would be a really good community gesture if they could. So.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to him.
Okay.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Who made the decision for the road department to go in there? And I'll tell you why I ask. It's a good decision.
Yeah, so when we originally talked about it, when we had it here, there was some concern over the cost of the bid. And so the board had talked about perhaps the road department going in there. So Dave did get a bid from the road department, and they said they would be able to, they talked about how much they could do and what they could do, what it would cost, and it was more cost effective to have the road crew do it. So.
Director Smelser, the reason I ask is that we still don't know who owns that property.
Oh, the county owns it.
Not the road department?
Well, it,
we can't go back further than 30 years to determine that.
so the county owns it, but it's for road purposes. Because what happens is that that property crosses over a road, a county road, and it's also, we acquired it, my understanding from the roadmaster is due to some slide concerns right there. So it's county-owned property. Pretty steep, very steep. I actually looked at it yesterday, and so it's pretty steep, but it's supposed to be maintained for road purposes. So the road crew is going to go in there and clean up what they're supposed to be maintaining, basically, is how we're...
Do they anticipate any resistance or difficulties from the folks living?
Oh, I'm sure we will. You know, they're going to have to find a different place to go. I do think once we get that property cleaned up, we should look at it and say, should this maybe be, I don't know, a sitting area, viewing area, a park, gazebo, something to that effect, to keep the public maybe going in and out of that property more often might help with some of the transient issues on that site. But that's for another day. Let's get it cleaned up first.
Good.
We're going to cut back some of the stuff on there too, right?
We're going to trim out the brush and the ground vegetation, or the brushy vegetation, and trim up the trees. So they're going to go in there with bulldozers and dump trucks, scoop up the debris that's on the property, and then start going in there and cleaning it up.
Good.
So I also wanted to just give a little update on the wage study. HR and I did have a conversation with HRA. I think it's Solutions is the name of the company that's helping us with it. And we have to go back and revise some of the job descriptions. They didn't meet the pay equity law, so we have to do some minor adjustments on those. And then we're also, Julie Swift went through and pulled out all the inactive job descriptions, because initially we had them all in there in case those positions came back. At least we had the wage assigned to it, but there's just so many of them that Julie went through and pulled them out, and she did a really good job cleaning that up. So we'll just keep moving forward on that one. As far as help with the upcoming budget, we'll talk about that in a few minutes here in executive session, but it looks like we're going to be able to at least have a cost-effective offer before us to consider. And with public health, I just wanted to give a little update on that. We are in the process of doing the fiscal review or the fiscal audit. I haven't been able to complete what the county does because it asks for policies and some things that we have in place, and I haven't been able to get all those. But I'll continue to work on that. But someone from Oregon Health Authority will actually be down here within the next couple weeks to sit down with staff and look at the records and see how we're doing on that. So, and that's all I have.
Okay. My commissioner updates will be rather short. Don't want to bring politics, personal politics into this meeting, but it was nice to see last night Rush Limbaugh, and I know he's usually on one side, but he was somebody that opened the door for all to be on public radio, to see him get the medal that he got, and some of the military families that were there, the surprise of that one mom and her 2 children to have their dad from his 4th tour be called home and visit them there, and then the loss of the one and her children to get the awards that they got in the recognition, to me, gave me that little tingle down the back of my neck of pride that I get in this country. I just want to briefly touch on the trip I'm going to make to Washington. I will be meeting not only with NACO to our military veterans and military services and their families, doing a presentation there, and trying to move some legislation forward on rural health care, building new rural health care centers. We're going to try and get one down here in rural Oregon, as opposed to the one that's up in Portland. I will also be meeting with the Department of the Interior, Secretary Bernhardt, and his assistant or Vice Secretary Tim Williams. Mr. Barnhart is an avid fisherman and outdoorsman, and I'm going to make an invitation to him to come to Curry County. I'm going to show him some of the videos that we took on the Rogue River and some other pictures that I have from the Chetco River, the rock that's in our river, and some of the other things that we're facing with the hatchery and those issues. And maybe I can get Commissioner Boyce and Jerry's to get us a jet boat. You can take Secretary up the river for a fishing trip and show them the way. So these are things.
I don't want to preempt you. I already invited him, so you and don't take one of his cigars. He'll offer you a cigar.
I am going to be meeting with him, though, and Tim Williams about these issues. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also going to be at the White House at a meeting with the Corps of Engineers and discussing further, their plans for keeping our ports clean. It's actually a meeting about the ports in Curry County, the coastal ports, and their intentions and budgets for that. I understand that there have been some movement in getting more money to the ports. So I look forward to that meeting. And again, I'm also looking very forward to meeting with the veterans organizations and seeing all we can do for them and their supporters and the people that give care to those veterans. Another update I want to give is just how, we spoke earlier about the volunteers, and I just want to give a shout out to the volunteers that work with our kids in this county. It's amazing to see the different organizations that come together and reach their hand out to kids to see some of the things that my wife and a lot of volunteers do on my ranch, along with some of the other 501c3s in the county that do 4-H, they do, they do Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all those kind of things. It amazes me when you see 40 kids get off a school bus on a Friday afternoon just wanting to go play in the dirt. It just brings back a lot of memories, and I'm just prideful that there are still people out there wanting to show our youth that there's more to life than just a computer game and sitting in your living room all day. So those are my comments. Commissioner Boyce?
Well, good job. That sounds like a very good plan. I'm going to do the worst first here. I'm going to take a few minutes. I want to bring up the OpenGov. This will be my last time to bring it up. I want the public, though, to know why I've been pretty bulldogish on this. This is a list of, subject to refinement, but this is a list of what the county's been hit with just the last year. It does represent portions that, of course, the two different budgets. But these are, I'm not looking to give the public an excuse, but we've had some pretty significant surprises in the expenditure categories. And so I've got it bolded here. I won't go through each one of them. You're familiar with them. When you see them all on a collective list, it gives you an idea where we are and what we're faced with. And no additional revenues coming in until we're able to harvest a greater level of timber. So I voted for the OpenGov system, and I told the board, I told the public, mentioned that it's the hardest vote I ever made. I wanted to be moving forward. I wanted to support the direction behind this. You voted in favor, of course, Mr. Pash, and you've had some good background and rationale on why it's an appropriate system for Erie County. Commissioner Gold opposed, so it was a 2-to-1 vote. What I want the public to know is that whether it's $800,000 or $300,000, it's money that nobody's accounted to me where those funds are going to come from. And I still have not got an answer on that. Obviously, we point to the road fund reserves. I've heard loans, and the road funds have never made a loan to the county. We have House Bill 3435, which is fairly significant in the requirements. So I don't know if we're going to have staff at some point follow through with those requirements, which are quite substantial in the amount of it's a bank-oriented program. So finishing here, direct ways that I think we can save costs is county vehicle purchases for emergency rigs, maybe for a 60-day period or a 6-month period. Out-of-state travel, if that's something that some of our employees need to go to wherever. I remember that our finance director a year and a half ago went to Nevada. I essentially had to pay my own way to Washington, D.C., but and that's not to in any way, I'm very happy with your schedule and your plans, Commissioner Pash. Out-of-county travel, if we just had prior approval, okay, by two of the 3 board members. The last thing here, just abbreviating the Cassell software, I think someone told me we do have an upgrade estimate on what that would take to bring the county up to speed on the new software process for our employees. And I think this is still the way to go. As I said, I'm not going to bring it up again, but it's going to be hard for me to support this until I know for sure where we're going to get the funds. That's all I have on that for now. There are some very good things happening in our county, and I am really enthused, and it's been rather motivating. Had a meeting last Thursday in Roseburg, the Ford Family Foundation. Got Emergency Management Coordinator Dumeyer on the phone and Economic Development Coordinator Madison on the phone, and it's just a beautiful place. We were very well received. We were supposed to be there for about 45 minutes. We were there for an hour and 15 minutes. And basically, with the help of Stan Foster, which the board approved, he's not charged us anything yet, but he represents Park Resources. And the number of people that we know around the state has really been almost gratifying, just because we've kind of connected. I think you could be a great resource for Curry County. I don't have a real detailed report to offer the board today, but we're basically asking the Ford Family Foundation for a $40,000 community assistant grant fund, which would tie all of our grant-seeking efforts together under one roof. It has would have the capacities to train some of our staff. It would involve park resources. They would give us well in advance the amount of money that they would charge. And so it's basically for planning and organizing, and I think we need to get that into the 5-year strategic plan. I noticed that it was somewhat referenced, the the grant writing part of it, and so I was glad to see that, of course. And then after that, we left Rogue, the Ford Family Foundation, went to USDA to Deanna Quimby, and a little bit of disappointment there, not in her, but she just doesn't have enough money to go around for the 9 counties. However, she had some very good input, and what we did learn, we thought we were going to have about $3 or $4 million between the 9 counties, and it's going to be about $1.5 million. So we're processing that, and again, I think Foster will be very beneficial there. But she also helped us looking at the ways down the road, back to our plan here, and back to eventually perhaps training our employees to always be on that USDA path to try and find additional funds and grants. So there's more I could report on that later on, but that'll do for now. I mentioned Merv George earlier, 2 very good meetings there. He spent time with Jim Hubbard, who I thought, when I went back to D.C., I thought that he was directly under the Forest Service chief. I don't know where I got that idea, but I somehow got my wires crossed. But Vicki Christensen, he's directly under Sonny Perdue, and he's got his eye on Southwest Oregon. And what we've been through in our fires and the sheer task of rebuilding our forest, our watershed, all of our fish and wildlife, I think there's going to be some real good days ahead beyond the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Grant that I presented to the board. That application went through the middle of January, and so we're thinking now there's a good chance that we've got him very interested in how we can get our forests restored and how we can really challenge the fire risk that we have for future catastrophic fires. So just really good news there, and working with Merv George on the whole. Actually, at some point in time, we may be combining the Six Rivers National Forest and the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest, because they're so rugged in the terrain that they should be their own. A lot of people are starting to believe they should be their own forest region, which would be number 10 in the United States, by the way. I want to mention real quick, Friday night, the 13th. Yeah, is it the 13th? I'm sorry, the 14th. Yeah, it's not Friday the 13th. For Search and Rescue, Curry County's having a dance here in Gold Beach, and if anybody wants to donate items, it's just a great group. Another volunteer group, Commissioner Gold.
That's what I was doing right now, writing that down.
We're having our first Suicide Awareness and Prevention Committee meeting tonight. That's quite an honor for me to help facilitate that a little bit. Finally, Mr. Chair, May 21st through May 26th, we have the World Championship jet boat races here. They'll be leaving Idaho from the 18th through the 20th. They have 2 days here. Gold Beach, Agnes, and then their final day will be Hoopa Reservation on the beautiful Trinity River. These are boats going well over, even the smaller classes go over 100 miles an hour. The races were concluded here back 10 years ago, so we're glad to have them back. The permit system, the safety aspect, Marine Board, Forest Service, everybody's on board. And there'll be teams from New Zealand, Mexico, Canada, and the United States. So we're looking forward to that. That's all I have. Thank you.
comment I forgot to mention was, I don't know if you wanted me to let it out of the box or not, but the Sheriff's Department is getting a new boat. They work with Oregon's Marine Division, and they are, I believe he said it has already been ordered. I'm not sure on that, but they are going to be getting a new boat. His hard work to get that done without having to use our funds to do that. Sheriff's just doing a great job over there. I'm very happy to hear that. So with that, we are at 11:40 right now, and we.
Did I get my report?
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
You know, it's always short and sweet and to the point.
I'm very, very sorry.
I just wanted to mention I've been working with CTR on trying to get the county some good deals on our trash, since I'm the trash lady. So Luke almost hesitates when I call, but oh well. Also, I wanted to report on SWAC and Beyond. This has been going on for the last 4 months, and this has been a grassroots effort, an all-volunteer, and they had their writers' workshop a couple of times with an average attendance of 25, and this group is continuing because they're just really into writing. The Tuesday speaker series has had an average attendance of 21. The Thursday afternoon, they have classes every week. Tuesday, they have every week, these speakers. They're having potlucks that highlight various cultures with an average attendance of 25. And they have a total of 159 participants that are on their reminder list. So all of this has been volunteer efforts and kind of a upward movement from the community wanting to have SWAC utilized more often. Also, in conjunction with that, I'm going to be going to the high school, and they've got their welding shop up and running. So SWAC probably will be partnering with them to have classes on welding. So that's it.
Commissioner Gold, can you just briefly, I know you were part of two things that I think are pretty important. One is report on the audit from yesterday and how that went. And then there was that 911 tax bill that passed that Budget Committee authority had given us, and you've done some work on that. Can you just give an update?
Right, on the 911, what happens is there's sub-accounts and then there's automatic payments to us. The sub-accounts are very restricted funds. They have to be for 911 items only. At first, when I looked at that, I thought, oh yes, maybe the towers, but those are not just dedicated towards 911 services. But that was rather interesting going through that. And also the audit yesterday that was on the Curry Transit System, or district, I should say. And Kathy Bernhardt is amazing. But there were a couple of things that we need out of that, and one of the biggies is we do not have a policy on Title VI. So we need to get that in place, and that would be for all of our other audits that we go through also. Whenever we get federal funds, this has to be in place. So those were the main things. He didn't think they were any huge issues that we can't overcome. Oh, also another policy we need to have in place is on the way that we procure contracts from various organizations to do things. There has to be a bidding process and so forth. So there needs to be a firm policy in place there.
I just want to comment on that too. So Kathy Bernhardt, they audited, they looked at her records and she was flawless. Everything she had was to a T. So very proud of the good job she did. The areas for improvement fell on the county. So it was good to see that her part was just polished and very good.
Yeah, she was good.
Okay, is that what you're?
That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Boyce?
We just need to keep her from retiring.
Well,
She thinks she's got another 10 years in her.
Oh, maybe that's good news.
well, it is 1:45. Do we want to break early for lunch and come back with executive session? Because I think it's probably going to be a...
Actually, one of the people that is going to be part of that executive session is here. Okay. So I think we should at least address that portion of the agenda and then maybe come back.
Okay. So at this time, we are going to recess this meeting and go into executive session per ORS 1926602B, 1926602F, 2H, and 2A. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Boyce?
did you think this was going to be short?
That's what I was just asking, and she said, because there's one person here already, let's take that, and then if we need to recess for less.